What is going on, YouTube? It's Tyler from Mission VR, where it's my mission to bring you guys good quality VR content. So, did you like the new intro? Well, it's a new brand, new label of the channel, so I sure hope so. I know I certainly do like it. Today, we are going to be talking about this state of PCVR and really kind of the state of VR in general, because PCVR is like kind of dead and it's kind of sad, but it's also not dead in a way, and we're going to talk about how it's not dead in this video. You know, as being somebody who's part of the PCVR master race, even though I'm using a Quest 2, I still am tethered to a PC, and I will always be a PC gamer first. But I cannot deny where the future of VR is going, but I do think the PC still has a significant factor in that. So we're going to talk about all that in this video today. Make sure you guys do drop a like on this video, subscribe to my channel, and let's go ahead and hop on into it. Alright guys, so without a doubt, PCVR is kind of slowly on its way out the door. And when I say that, I don't mean like it's dead forever and it's never going to have anything good come out of it ever again, because that's certainly not the case. There is a ton that is going to continue to happen with PCVR, but it's certainly not going to be as mainstream as, say, the Quest 2 is. And I think we've all kind of accepted that at this point. We're getting to that point though where, you know, some major changes are about to unfold in the industry, and I think that we're actually seeing that in the fact that we don't really have any major game announcements right now that like we're like, oh wow, we can't wait for that game to come out this year, because I just don't think that the industry is in a position right now where they're developing major AAA games, because everything's kind of up in the air and turned upside down and twisted left and right, and no one knows where the industry is going to be at the end of this year because of really what the Quest 2 has done to VR. It has made it mainstream, but Facebook also has a monopoly over the marketplace, so everybody and their mother is rushing now to try to grab a spot of that share, a little bit of that share in any way that they can. So in one way that I think that, you know, we're going to stop seeing some PCVR stuff is that PCVR exclusives like Half-Life Alyx are definitely on their way out the door. And I don't think we're going to see any more of those at all, to be quite honest. And if we do, it's going to be niche titles, you know, little indie titles that, you know, maybe have a little bit of hype around them. Like I got a couple PCVR games like Vertigo 2, Undead Citadel, Hellsweeper. Those games are on my radar right now as I think going to be good games that are coming out this year. But at that same time, that, you know, those games are single player games mostly, and, you know, multiplayer titles on PCVR are dead for sure, because, you know, when they release, there just isn't anybody to play with. There's not the volume, and multiplayer games, obviously you need players to play with, you know. And even these titles, you know, I think that this is the last hoorah of some of these titles. Every game developer moving forward is going to be pushing to put their platform on the Quest 2, on standalone, because of the success. And, you know, I mean, think about it, you're putting all that time into a game anyways. I would definitely want to be able to, you know, make some money off of it whenever I release it, so I totally understand why they're doing this. Now, that being said, I don't think that they're not going to come to PC, so if you have the high-end PC VR hardware, I still think you're going to be able to play these games, and that's kind of a good thing when it comes to that, because if you are somebody who's an enthusiast and you want to spend more money and have better hardware and have all the latest and up-and-coming tech, then you're still going to have access to these games. So not totally a bad thing. Where I think the industry is going to start to struggle a little bit is that there's not going to be as many indie developers and indie games developed because of the lack of ability for, you know, game developers to put their software on the Quest. Even though that App Labs has come out and it's allowed, you know, slightly less strict Oculus Store, it still is not easy to get your game on there. And I really think that Meta or Facebook needs to, you know, come to terms and come to the table with an idea or a plan to implement some sort of indie game store where indie game developers that can put their game on Steam VR can also put it on the Oculus Quest store. And, you know, unlike before where you had to develop your game on a certain game engine and then you had to port it to every single different hardware device now, with the implementation of OpenXR, which is a software platform that basically allows, you know, game developers to develop their game and then use through OpenXR, they're able to port their game onto all VR, you know, systems from Steam VR to the Quest without having to make entirely different versions of the game, which saves them a ton of time in the development cycle. And ultimately, it's good for us because we get the game on every platform as possible. And, you know, games that require multiplayer or, you know, to be good, and, you know, games that are built around multiplayer, we have more players to play with, which is ultimately a great thing for VR in general. Now, as far as the software side of things go, I do think we're going to be okay with the game situation. I just think we're in a situation right now where people aren't really sure how to develop their games if they want to push the limits, because the Quest 2 does have such limitations. I do think that this year, even though it's early, we're only halfway through February, I think we're going to get plenty of game announcements coming up, but I do think it's going to be a year of ports, if I'm going to be honest. I mean, if you look at the success of Resident Evil 4 and, the upcoming hype around the GTA, port over, and then of course, you just look at the past ports that we've gotten, throughout VR, Skyrim being one of them. I just think that this year is going to be a lot of old games that are beloved, and they're going to be ported into VR and sold on the Quest for another profit. To be honest, it is quite an easy way to make a profit, on some of the most hype and best video games we've ever played, coming to the virtual reality space with so many people getting into Quest. Plus, it's going to drive Quest sales through the roof if they release games that we've all known and loved and played throughout our entire lifetime, and now you get a chance to actually play them in VR. So I do think we're going to start seeing a lot more ports, but I do also hope that we are going to see some newer games coming up as well. And I think that the implementation of PSVR 2 that is coming out sometime later this year is going to absolutely help this space for sure, because it's going to add so much volume. And we all know the PSVR sold a ton of headsets. It's the most underrated, talked about thing in the VR community. Besides Quest, it sold a ton. It sold so many. And I think PSVR 2 is going to be a massive, massive step up compared to PSVR 1. And it's probably going to sell a lot of headsets, which is going to drive that volume of VR players up to the roof. And if the hardware systems are a lot better, the players are going to play it. I mean, I know so many people that love playing After the Fall, and they were on PSVR, and I'm like, how can you even play that on that crappy ass system compared to what we all know and love with the Quest and PCVR side of things, where our controls are just so much smoother and all that stuff. So I think the implementation of PSVR 2 is going to help the industry a lot grow in its user base, and a lot of the game developers are going to obviously want to put their games on Sony's platform, as well as Oculus's platform, and as well as Steam's platform. So again, PCVR and just VR in general is definitely growing on the software side of things. I do think PCVR exclusives are absolutely dead though in the water at this point. Again, aside from a small niche amount of titles, and indies will still begin to be developed, but I think that they're slowly going out the door. And I noticed that as I've done my monthly game watch video, where once a month I talk about 3 upcoming non-heard of VR games. And man, those up and coming games are becoming really, really thin, because there's just not that many people developing them anymore. So that kind of sucks on that end of things, but I do think the VR industry is going to continue to chug forward. And if honestly, Oculus needs to come up with a way to be able to play indie games on the Quest, from some sort of side quest store, and not have to, go through the current side quest situation, which a lot of people don't want to deal with because it's not straightforward. It's not super easy to do. And honestly, a lot of people just want to open up an app store and download an app. And I think that that's what Oculus needs to go in the future, to, allow indie game developers to keep doing their thing and actually be able to make a little bit of profit off their game. And whether that's them making a royalty or something, who knows? I'm sure Facebook will do something to make some money out of it. Now, as far as PCVR goes and just VR hardware in general goes here, there is some promising stuff coming up in the future if you are a PCVR fan. Now, we talk about the fact that software is definitely going to continue to come to the PC, and obviously it's going to be optimized on the PC first and then, downgraded. We're still going to absolutely have the top of the line graphics, the absolute best of the best, performance that we can possibly get. And with that, we're going to want better hardware, and there is some nice hardware coming out. And, we talk about this new Pimax headset that is coming out later this year. Actually looks pretty promising. Pimax 12K, and their most recent headset, Pimax's launch was abysmal, no doubt about it, but as the years have gone on, it's become a pretty solid headset, to be honest. And it's one of those headsets that, if you can afford it, you actually really would enjoy this headset. And their newest headset, with the 12K, has some amazing features, included foveated rendering, a massive display, and of course, the 12K promise, as well as it is going to be standalone and be able to run, on the XR2 Snapdragon chip. I cannot wait to see how that is implemented, because that's going to be kind of crazy to think that that chip can power that entire headset. Will remain to be seen, but this headset also tethers to a PC, so it's going to have a massive ability to just be super versatile in that space. And of course, we know Valve is working on another headset as well, and their next play, it's been pretty heavily rumored that they're also going to go with a standalone headset. So that bears this next question: is VR is kind of becoming a console-like system where, instead of buying a PlayStation or an Xbox, you're going to buy a VR rig, and you're going to have access to all these different platforms. And I think as the technology gets better and better, I think that we're going to see some amazing things happen with that. And I'm definitely looking forward to that. Now, I'm always going to be PCVR at heart because I've always been PC gaming in general at heart. So, that being said, I just hope every standalone headset has the ability to tether to a PC and tether pretty well. The Oculus Link has gotten so much better since it was originally released, to the point where it's actually not too crappy now, especially with the USB-C to USB-C. USB-A to C definitely has its issues, but USB-C to C is definitely the way to go. And, most modern rigs now are going to be carrying that ability. So that's pretty cool. And VR becoming its own console, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's going to end up selling more. And if Valve and Pimax have their own standalone and they can run, Steam console basically is what I think they're toting to be able to do. Obviously, Valve, being a Steam company, is going to have a console version of Steam on their headsets. And this is going to allow for a lot of, if people start buying into these headsets, depending on price, of course, Meta has the price lockdown, Pimax being $23.99 standalone. There's not going to be a ton of people that buy into that unless you're a VR enthusiast. We'll see what Valve's price is going to be. And of course, we know the Apple VR is also coming out. I have no idea if that's going to be, cross-compatible with Windows or not. Apple's devices don't really like Windows and all that. And supposedly that headset's going to be $3,000. But, with Apple, I'm sure they're going to push the boundaries of VR forward, which is going to do nothing other than help the industry. So I guess we're in kind of this weird position right now with VR where there's so much happening behind the scenes, but we're in this position where we're just not seeing a ton of new games coming out. We're not seeing anything major in the VR hardware space that's making massive splashes right now, that everybody's looking forward to, everybody can't wait to get their hands on. So it's kind of in a weird limbo right now where there's definitely a lot of progress being made, but I think we're going to see a massive explosion towards the end of this year of just VR starting, it's already mainstream, just really taking that next step. And I think that, with things like OpenXR, this is going to be huge. And then also, there's one other thing we have to talk about, and that is cloud computing. These headsets, if we start to implement cloud computing into this, which you're already seeing that become more of a thing with software programs like Stadia, where basically you're streaming a game, from a high level computer to your monitor, and it's running very smoothly with almost little to no latency at all. And with the blockchain technology and all kinds of cool things that are going on in the technology space, I think cloud computing is going to be a big step forward, because you're going to be able to have a headset like a Quest 2 but be able to run the absolute maximum graphics because of cloud computing. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that is implemented in the next 5 or so years in VR. I think, like I said, VR right now, the state of VR and the state of PCVR is very up in the air. PCVR in general, I think, is probably on its decline, from being mainstream, from being the next big thing. As much as I personally love it, and I think people miss out on experiences when they're like, oh, I get all the time on my channel, I get so many comments where people are like, these graphics look like PlayStation 3 graphics, blah, 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 blah. Well, so, when you're inside the headset, and especially on PCVR side of things, I've played a lot of games. The graphics are pretty damn realistic, and my headset's still not even, high end, compared to some of the other ones. So, just running a Quest 2 with the link cable, and I've still played some games where I'm like, man, these graphics are really good. I can't wait to see what this is going to be like in just a couple years. I'm already super immersed. I get so many people that are like, PlayStation 2 graphics, and they don't understand that when you're inside the VR headset, you don't notice that. So it's not a huge deal. And it's just something that I think a lot of people need to get over, and they need to get their hands on a VR headset. I can't tell you how many people that I've introduced to VR and I've seen introduced to VR that are just like, I never expected it to be this way. And I think as far as the state of VR in 2022, it's absolutely going to be mind-blowing at the end of this year how many strides are made in this industry. As last year we really saw with the Christmas and all the numbers that happened with Christmas and just overall the year VR had last year, I think we really saw it become mainstream. And I think this year is going to be the implementation into the mainstream, as well as a lot of ports are going to come over, which is going to drive more sales. I mean, think about it. If Meta released like Modern Warfare 2, ported over into VR, I'm pretty confident that a lot of people will be picking up that game, including myself. There's no doubt about it. That was one of the most beloved games I ever played growing up. And if I had a chance to get my hands on that campaign in VR, I absolutely would, let alone the multiplayer. So VR is absolutely moving forward. I think PCVR is slowly on its way out the door from being kind of mainstream at all. And that's a shame to say, but I don't think PCVR is going to be the mainstay going forward. It's always going to have its place in VR. There's no doubt about it. There's always going to have the ability to, you know, run the highest end of the highest end. But I think VR is absolutely becoming console driven, and it's going to become its own standalone thing. And hopefully somebody's able to knock a little bit of market share in a meta, because they really need knocked down off their high horse right now. Otherwise, they're going to just continue to dominate the market. Well, guys, that is it for this video on the state of VR in 2022. I hope you guys found it interesting and informative. Please do let me know in the comment section below. Please do drop a like on this video, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.